Hello everyone, welcome back to Mike Makes. Presuming that you watched the last one. um, Hopefully everything's working right now. Double check. Still getting the hang of this. Oh, there's a delay, right? Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. Still getting distracted. Okay. Hopefully we're live now. Okay. So yeah, welcome back to Mike's. Welcome back to Mike Makes. If you've been here before, if not, welcome. So I got quite a few things to show tonight. I'll be working on my MapWork project as before, which is my web-based 2D tile map editor. Sort of the unique thing about this is that I'm trying to take a very old, kind of really old-fashioned JQuery heavy app, and I'm converting it to use a new front-end library which is Svelte, and basically just trying to bring it up to date before I add a ton of features to it. So there's a few things I want to go over tonight. One's going to be the changes that I've done just kind of in my spare time between the last stream. I'll just give you like a now and then type thing. And then also there's some stuff about project management that I'd like to share with everybody, so you can get a little bit of an insight into what's been going on, sort of between the time when I announced that I was working on this project and now. So without further ado, so yeah, like I said, we'll first start with looking at the project where we were last time, and take it from there. So what we had last time was our app.svelte, and we were kind of bit by bit in a very kind of bottom up approach, taking each individual component and modernizing it and putting it in its own component. It was taking quite a while to do. So yeah, we had our wizard set up in Svelte, and we were just kind of picking through this, adding menus, like taking out old HTML and turning it into Svelte. So we have all of our wizards and components here, which was a good start. A little bit slow though, a little bit laborious. As you can see here, it's all just plain HTML at the moment in the app.svelte file, which is essentially your index.html. So while I was off stream, I did a little bit of work to consolidate this. So I started off, like I said in the stream, taking kind of a bottom-up approach where I would pick a thing on the screen, and turn it into a component, and then I would pick apart all of the dependencies and all the jQuery, and that's taken quite a while. So I decided to take more of a top-down approach when I did some work off stream. So last night I was working on this, and if we just go back to this is a commit that I went to here in Git. So if I go to my main commit now, which has no doubt crashed the app, which you would expect, because I've done lots and lots and lots of refactoring, including renaming directories, which is going to break everything. So let's run that in dev mode again. Oh, and this file doesn't exist anymore because it's in a different directory. So if we go to a source directory, as it should be named, and this is the new app.svelte file. It's just shrunk down to teeny tiny file now as it should be. So what I've done is I've taken every kind of element, every component as it happens, everything that should logically be a component, and I've put it all into its own Svelte file. So instead of having all that HTML here, now you've got essentially a really condensed version of everything. So still got our wizards here, but I've added an additional wizard. And I've actually got a better way of representing this, which I'm going to do in this stream that I haven't tried yet. And also, hello everyone, and see everybody on the chat. There's a bit of delay here because I wanted to get the stream was a bit jumpy last time, so I've just reduced the latency, or rather, increased the latency to make the thing a little bit less jumpy and increase the bit rate. So hopefully everything will be nice and clear and not jump around. Please tell me if it does jump around, and I'll try and fix it. So what I've done is I've got my wizards up here, which are shown conditionally on the page based on if a user's activated a wizard. And then what I've done is I've just taken everything that was in the original app and condensed it down into a they called it a React component there, a Svelte component. So we have this we have a notification banner, which I'll demonstrate in a moment. And we've got like the left side. This would be a lot more helpful if I started the app. There we go. So we've got our left bar here, which contains all the primary actions, and you can activate dialogues. And we have a notification here because we haven't created our project. So yeah, on our left side we have our primary actions, and then we have on our right side our contextual actions. So if a project exists, good. I'm being told in the chat that it's things have cleared up a little bit in terms of picture quality and things jumping about and lagging, which is good. You might have to wait about a minute or so for us to answer any questions because I do see them a lot later, or rather I see them, but then the video has to catch up. So I apologise for that. So yeah, we have our secondary actions here, and now this is represented as a component in Svelte. I've just popped the developer tools because I have the Svelte developer tools enabled. So you'll see here a bunch of components on the left side and our right side. So see, DOM gets updated and Svelte gets updated. So yeah, so we can select on things. But yeah, I've essentially taken all the original UI, like this here, and put it into components. Now this doesn't mean that the job is done. The job is far from done, because instead of picking through each of the components as I move them over, and JQueryifying them, what I've done is I've kind of cheated a little bit, and I've left all of that out. Most of this code is just literally HTML copied and pasted back into individual components for clarity. So if we say select the palette menu here, which is this, all I've really done is taken the original HTML with all of its IDs and its classes and everything, all remaining intact, and I've just kind of dropped it into here. It isn't really a true component, like the menu, the action menu is. The action menu, I've properly gone through it and restructured it and refactored it to make it work the Svelte way. So there's going to be a lot of work to do still, but it's a start. I've got my app structured in sort of a more declarative way, and everything is put into into components so that we can start building out the app in sort of the correct way. So that's a good start, and that's a run down of what I've been doing over between streams. As you can see here, I've had to import all of the components. Over by using the imports in the script tags. for all of this to work. So that's probably the first piece of business to cover. Now I'm going to go into a little bit of project management and Scrum and planning and stuff. So just to make things a little bit more interesting. So a little bit of background. I'm a front end developer. My official title at work is software engineer, but I mainly deal with front end stuff, so I'm more like a front end engineer. So yeah, I do that normally, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. Next week I've taken a holiday, so I'm going to try and dedicate most of my time to producing videos and possibly streaming, probably a bit of both. Just working on this project and hopefully creating some content for everyone. My aspiration is to take a lot of highlights from these videos and turn them into like a video series, make them coherent, then add a little bit extra, a bit of editing and just some extra information. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover a little bit of the project management aspects of this of MapWork, of what I've been doing in the background, because I've desperately wanted to show this as a video, but I am I'm not great at writing scripts. I'm going to be honest. I'm not great at writing scripts. All I do when I write scripts is I just keep writing and editing, and I'll shoot something and then I'll usually deem it not high quality enough to release, and then it goes in the bin. So instead, what I'm going to do is try and live stream all of this, explain the concepts, hopefully put it out in some kind of coherent manner, and then if that's all good, I can either just put the edited down version out live as put the edited out version down as a video, or I can add some extra video context, extra stuff, or use that stream as more of a guideline to make a produced video. Anyway, moving on from that, we'll get on with the details. So let's bring up the mirror. So there we go. Here is my Miro board. Miro is just a sort of planning tool that has recently been discovered by, I recently discovered. Now, I have wanted to make videos about this for a long, long time. This board here, this frame, as I call it in Miro, covers the extent to which of things that I've been doing with MapWork that I haven't recorded, or I've recorded and then discarded without releasing. This is essentially like a mapped out version of what I've been doing with this project. So if you zoom in here to the important stuff, these post notes, this is essentially what I've been doing between deciding to bring the MapWork project back to life. Again, a little bit of background. This was a project that I did for my university dissertation back in 2013. It was built using, originally it was a .NET project with, it was a very thinly layered .NET project. Essentially, I wrote basically just front-end code in JavaScript and JQuery and CSS. It was a very close to the metal kind of a project. I didn't use any front-end frameworks. AngularJS, I don't think was even at version 1 at that point. React was, I don't know if it was even the thing. And essentially, the way you wrote a web app back then was jQuery it so that it's cross-browser compatible. So it was a jQuery app, very basic, didn't have a build system. It was just, uncompiled. So you ran the JavaScript. If the JavaScript was, worked in that browser, then it would run correctly. If it didn't work in, say, IE, you'd have a bug on your hands. There was no transpiler, no minification step, nothing like that. Everything was just pure in the clear JavaScript, very old-fashioned ES3 JavaScript. There wasn't even any ES5 in there. ES5, I don't think, was widely supported then. So a lot of those nice array functions that you'd get in ES5 weren't present in ES3. there was no concept of anonymous functions. Promises weren't around. I don't know how we even did without promises in JavaScript. It was all callbacks. It was a different era, pretty much. So with that in mind, let's go through the project and how I've managed it. So essentially, I wanted to, for quite a long time, make a video about demonstrating my learnings from my project to you guys and gals and everyone else. So, yeah, with that in mind, the things I want to demonstrate are how somebody migrates a project that's so old and antiquated, legacy code, to something that's useful and new and expandable. Because I've always followed the principle of that you don't want to build. It's like the old story of not wanting to build your house on sand, or mud. I think in the software development industry we call, software which isn't great a ball of mud, and we don't really want to build on top of, increase the size of a ball of mud, and we don't want to build on top of sand. Now, with the MapWork project, personally, I know that the project was the time of writing it. I tried very hard to not make it a ball of mud and not build on sand, and all in all, it didn't actually do that bad a job. It was actually pretty well structured in terms of there was kind of a mind to separate out the canvas rendering from the UI. So that was good. The only problem is that that's literally what I did. I had canvas rendering functions, and then I had UI functions, and everything to do with the UI that then made the calls out to the canvas was done in one file. So we're talking thousands of lines of functions. And in the canvas rendering, everything was done, as a series of small classes, and then one massive canvas class, which I've now renamed the render manager. I can't actually remember what it was called before. That render manager had had basically a monolithic draw function, and it was very hard to say unit test. I didn't even attempt to back in the day, mainly because I didn't really know how to unit test back then. But as I came back to that project, the draw function was very, very monolithic. So with that in mind, we had a monolithic view controller, you could call it, that handled all the UI elements, manually pushed around DOM elements, did a lot of the heavy lifting, a lot of the dirty work that you can get a framework to do now. And we had a render manager, the canvas render manager, which, while it was nice, it was separated from the view controller, and also there was abstractions for the camera, so that the rendering camera and various things like the tiles, layers, and maps inside the application. There was still lots of monolithic functions to draw the to the canvas and all the other elements, things such as the area select tool, and also the palette, the tile picker. So that's where we are with that. So, what did we do to try and migrate that project over to a more modern system? How do we put it on a more modern footing? Well, firstly, we added Babel to the project. And let's go back to the code, and we'll do these side by side. There we go. Yes, so what do we do? Well, we added a library called Babel to the application. See, here we have our Babel resource file with a preset. Essentially, Babel is a library or a set of libraries that allow you to take code, JavaScript code or TypeScript code, or essentially augmented JavaScript. Let's call it that. It allows you to take augmented JavaScript and transpile it, turn it from augmented JavaScript to plain JavaScript. Why do we want to do this? Well, there are a lot of features that are around in modern JavaScript, in modern JavaScript specs, that are sometimes a little bit ahead of modern browsers. So if you ever use the site, can I use, which I'll bring up, it's a good example. I'm sure you've probably seen this if you've done web development. caniuse.com tells us when we can use certain things in browsers and which browsers are supported in. So, not all things in JavaScript are implemented uniformly across browsers, and a lot of modern technology that people, modern libraries and APIs that people get really excited about aren't available in the wild in browsers natively. I try to think of something. Let's try async await. Async functions. As you can see here, yes, support is actually quite good now. So in the latest versions of Chrome, Firefox, Edge, you've got support for async await, which is a way of doing asynchronous, executing asynchronous code. But in older versions of IE, you couldn't use it. You'll never use it in IE without polyfills, which are usually libraries to do the same kind of thing. Rather than transpile the code, provide patches in the JavaScript to convert the new code into usable code that's usable in older browsers. Although it can be more desirable to transpile code in the build process for performance reasons, and also there are some things that you probably couldn't transpile down safely in the browser on the fly. So yeah, that's one thing we want to add to our project. Also, however, I added this to my project. Well, I've added a node to the project, npm. So again, just to summarize npm, npm is a package manager which is used alongside Node.js, which is a JavaScript-based server-side language, or server rather. So it's a JavaScript based server that allows us to write JavaScript on the back end. But also, people these days, we tend to, or front end developers, we tend to use a Node on the front end as well to build our projects, because we can just use it to run tasks. And alongside npm or yarn, for example, we can use dependencies, i.e. JavaScript libraries, and we can load them in sort of a uniform way to use them in a build process. So I added Node as well to the project, and I added Babel, and various other things. So just allows us to import dependencies and use them. JavaScript rage. I think I made somebody rage quit from daring to use JavaScript. Anyway, back to here. So so you got your npm, you got your Node, and it allows you to import external dependencies to use to build the project, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time. So yeah, with that in mind, it allows us to add things like Babel to transpile our code as part of the build process, and allows us to upgrade our code base to modern JavaScript. In addition to Babel, I've also added a bundler called Parcel, and you may have already seen what this does. There we go. If you just kill the process for a second, we can do things like build. You see up here we have commands, and that'll run Parcel for us. And what that'll do is minify and bundle up everything into a nice low footprint dist folder that we can then deploy. So this dist folder doesn't get committed into source control, but you can see here all these hashes and everything. Essentially what it's done is just squashed everything down in a nice bundle that we can deploy to a server. So that's the idea of that. And with if I run the dev version of this, Parcel's kind of magic in that it'll take some of the dependencies you've added, like Svelte, which is our language compiler, allows us to write Svelte markup and compiles on the fly, and SAS, which allows us to write nested CSS and things like mixins. It will pre-process that and turn that back into CSS that's runnable in the browser. And in addition to that as well, we also have our test framework Jest, which I can go into a little bit more later. We still have jQuery because it's still a dependency of the app, but hopefully by the end of doing this project, we won't have to like explicitly add jQuery. Some other things under the hood might depend on it, but our project shouldn't. If anything, at face value, it looks like it needs jQuery. We're either going to make it so that it uses vanilla JavaScript because it's more widely supported now, or hopefully we can just eliminate the need for jQuery in that case, because we'll be able to do something in just Svelte instead to replace that. We have there some like best practice things like ESLint in here as well. Allows us to tidy our code up and say, when things are wrong. And we've got Prettier as well, which will automatically, when I save a document, will restructure the code so that it's compliant with the ESLint rules and some of its own rules that have been defined. So so with all that, we've got like a nice, neat project that's easy to compile, is easy to run locally for testing, and immediately update any changes when we're making changes to the code or the CSS. And so that pretty much covers that part. And then moving on from that, just really quickly going over my continuous integration and deployment strategy, which is quite important. The project didn't have any kind of a build process, any kind of a deployment or integration process when I wrote it originally. Everything was developed locally and then maybe pushed to a Git repo, just manually. I don't think I really had a good branching strategy back then, but I'm not really going to go into any detail about branching strategies at the moment. Suffice to say that I use branches for the master branches. There is the deployable code, and then I have develop branches. Actually, I haven't been using develop, but I've been using topic and feature branches to develop features, and topic branches to explore things that I'm not 100% sure are going to become fully fleshed out features. And obviously those get integrated back into the master branch, and then you've got a code that can be deployed. If I wanted to get a bit more granular, I could have release branches, which would then go back into the master branch. But again, not going to go over that too much detail. But yeah, so we've got continuous integration and deployment. And what I've done with that is I used Jenkins as my continuous or my integration tool. Essentially, what I do is I store all of my builds. I trigger and store builds in Jenkins. Let's go kind of end to end with this. Okay, so the first part is I've made some code changes. I want to commit and push those code changes. So where do they go? Okay, so I commit and push some code changes. Where do they go? Well, they go to GitHub at the moment. That's where I have my Git repositories hosted. So this is GitHub. and whenever there's a commit, code goes to whatever branch that I'm committing the code to. Now GitHub and other source control hosts, they have a feature called webhooks, and what webhooks basically are just HTTP requests that are made to a specific endpoint that carry information. Like in this case, a webhook would get triggered when a commit or a push is done to a repository. And what a webhook can do is it can deliver to, say, your continuous integration, continuous deployment tool, information about which branch. Yeah, vulnerability. Yeah, bad mic. Won't reveal that on stream, I guess. Look into that later. It's probably a very, very old dependency that the project used to rely on, which hopefully we can get rid of in due course, or something in Parcel.js. But we'll find out about that. Good spot though. So where I was. So what we do is use webhooks to inform our continuous deployment and continuous integration tool to trigger a build for that branch. That branch is a commit, and then what that'll do is it will generate the build either on a server or in a Docker container or something like that. And it'll do things like run tests to make sure that nothing's broken in the code, and then push those changes or publish those changes to somewhere like Heroku or S3, or depending on what kind of app it is. So that's how that works. So GitHub pushes a webhook, and then I will go to. So we'll go from thing gets pushed to GitHub. GitHub sends off webhook. GitHub sends webhook to, in my case, Jenkins, which I'm not wholeheartedly endorsing. Use Jenkins because it has been an absolute pain to work with, and there are much better solutions than Jenkins. I'm actually thinking of switching to using something like GitHub Actions or some other build tool that you can use. But Jenkins was what I knew at the time. So what I've got here then is, on receipt of a webhook, my Jenkins build server, which is being hosted on a Raspberry Pi that I have control over, triggers a build. So on my project. So this is the current one we've been working on. There you go. Every time there's a change made and it gets pushed to GitHub, then a webhook gets fired, a build gets generated, and then we go through our process of checking whether everything worked correctly. So as you can see, we've got green lights here, which mean the build has passed and that all the tests have succeeded. We've got the console here. Essentially just goes through, it checks out the code, installs all the dependencies, runs through npm install, does a npm build. As you can see here, that's all succeeded, and built a bundle. And then after that, it does a test, runs all the tests, does a coverage report so I can see whether everything, like how well the code's covering, or how well the tests are covering the code. And then it does a publish to the S3 endpoint. So I host my stuff on AWS. And for every build, I'll show you in the code as well, the Jenkins file. I have a Jenkins file here which tells Jenkins how to build the app and how to deploy it. So as you can see here, it goes and it builds a Docker image with the latest, with a very late current version of Node, and then it then uses params to sort of poke a hole to provide a port, expose a port, and then it then tries to build the app. It builds the app, generates test coverage reports and test success reports, and then based on whether it's building from master or any other branch, it goes to S3 and then deploys the build. So if it's in the master branch, it just deploys to like the bucket that is hosted as like the main. I guess you would call it like a nightly build in other development circles. It's like essentially the place where you want to run a demo all the time, and then all the other branches get built as their own separate buckets. Sorry, not buckets, folders within the bucket, so you can go back to them and you have like an audit trail, an archive. So that's why that happens. I think here as well we build that for both. So if you have the master branch, it will build a version for that for you, but then it will also build the main master branch as well. So a good example of that is if I go to my website, here's my website now with HTTPS. So you can feel safe surfing on this site now. Go to my projects, MapWork. What I'm doing is I'm hosting like a live demo of MapWork right now. And this build, as you can see, is an older build. The dialogue's different. This is the build that is essentially the master branch. And if I made any changes to master, it would update this site. So yeah, so that's always up to date with what's on the master branch. This is like where the releases happen. So that's one of the advantages of having a continuous deployment mechanism and a continuous integration mechanism. So we could say that GitHub webhooks, and Jenkins is like the continuous integration part of it, and then Jenkins and S3 are like the continuous deployment part of this app. So yeah, this is pretty sophisticated in comparison to the way it was back in 2013. I wouldn't say that my current approach to building and deployment is sophisticated. I would possibly argue that using Jenkins is probably a bit of a bit of a dead end, because people are moving away from Jenkins and using things like, I think, Bitbucket pipelines, GitHub Actions, Heroku has some kind of a pipeline framework. Essentially, every Git host has some kind of pipeline mechanism that they want you to use, normally so they can make more money, although normally for personal use it's usually quite cheap anyway. But I'll probably migrate to one of those rather than self-hosting, or maybe I'll get some kind of a Git tool and host it on premise on my Pi and use the build, the continuous integration, CI, CD stuff. But I think in general, using AWS is a good strategy, because it's nice and scalable and fast. So use my voice. So anyway, I think we've covered CI there. So we covered deployment. All right, and good. We're getting near the end of this. We can get on to just writing some code. All right, so we'll come back to this one, which is selecting front-end framework. Getting test confidence around the app. So what did I do there? Well, believe it or not, the 2013 version of MapWork had no tests at all. As I may have mentioned in a previous video, I was always like in passing and like while working and stuff, people always used to say, "Oh, we should really add unit tests to this project," and everyone would go, "That sounds like a good idea," and then it would never get done. And I took this kind of attitude with me to university, having not actually done any unit tests and like in other settings, to university, and I didn't spend the time practicing good unit test practices. Like, I just didn't write tests. It didn't seem like it was important at the time. But as I've gone through my career and worked on more complex pieces of software, you start to realize that good test confidence is really important, and having good unit tests for your code is essentially the minimum you should be doing. So with that in mind, I wanted to have really good, up to date unit test coverage on MapWork. So I'm gonna go into a little bit of detail about what I did to achieve that. So if we go back to our package.json, there we go. So yes, here are our post notes. Getting test confidence around the app, very important. Breaking down the render manager into smaller functions to make it easier to unit test. Installing test runner, jest. Writing tests around as much of the code base as possible with caveats. Okay. So the way I approached this was, I said, anything that I can reuse in this app, I'm going to unit test before I do a lot of the like major work on it on the app. I'm going to do some really like basic update to the code, really basic renovation of the code, and then I'm going to write some tests. Yep, although testing is good for security, indeed, because if you have if you're writing some code that may possibly have security flaws, you can throw a lot of test data at it and see where the vulnerabilities are. So that is a very good point. Code can have holes in it, things that are unforeseen. I found as well that when you're writing code and you make a change to a feature, and it's quite a significant change, like say you change an API endpoint, and you want to assert that you've got rid of that API endpoint, it's really good to put a test to make sure that the endpoint doesn't exist anymore. That's kind of a convoluted example, but sometimes it's about writing tests around things that you expect to not exist anymore because maybe they had security holes in, and then like having tests to assert that they definitely don't exist anymore, because you can find out as well if things are making calls out to things that features in your app that shouldn't exist anymore, and you can add like deprecation notices and login and stuff to make sure that other services aren't using things or expecting to use things that don't exist anymore. So that's a really good point, although absolutely. So yeah, going back to testing. Yeah. So my approach was to say I'm going to do some like very surface level refactoring of the code to make it a little bit more amenable to writing unit tests, and then after that I'm going to write lots of unit tests around the code that I think is unit testable. There are other parts of this app that I've decided to kind of sacrifice and not unit test around because they're just so monolithic, and they're also going to be completely changed because I'm going to convert them to Svelte components. Now, some would make the argument that that kind of code would be good to write unit tests around, which I do partially agree with. It would be nice to take feature X, write unit test code around it, port it, and then see whether the tests broke or not. But I came to the conclusion that in this case the benefits don't outweigh the drawbacks in this particular situation, just because the code is so like monolithic and baked in. I'd rather just take kind of a very careful approach of taking the code, migrating the feature, and then writing tests around it. But for the stuff that I did unit tests, I'll give you a little bit of a look at what was done. So things that could be migrated easily and added and testable are things like the concept of a tile. Now, just taking a breath here because I've talked a bit long without taking a breath. A little bit of a break. Ooh, and I'm getting a little bit warm as well, so I'm going to take this off. The joys of editing in video there. It's live. I'm also not only here for the beer. In fact, I haven't had a beer in a month. The joys of quarantine. The joys of lockdown. Anyway. Take two. So yeah, I've got my tile class here. Now this was written originally as a ES3 prototypal class, which if you ever encountered those, they aren't true classes in the word, like to the word of a class. But in ES5, JavaScript brought in the concept of real classes. Classes with properties and as you would know them in other languages such as C++ or Java. We've now got that kind of the semantics for proper classes, as I like to call them. So given that, what I did was I updated my tile class to an ES6 class, which is importable and exportable using ES. I don't think it's actually ES6, but ES7, ES20. Let's just say ES 2020 imports and exports of modules. So what I've got here is I'm exporting my tile class, and then you have your member variables and your methods. Yeah. So now that that's in like a nice neat structure, I'm now able to add tests to those. So, and also with this particular class, it's got very neat inputs and well-defined inputs and outputs. So if we take a look at Visual Studio Code, which I love, by the way, I'm just modding it because I can. There we go. We have, let's expand this. We have the code and a set of tests. This is where I find out whether I've installed Jest, all the Jest add-ons, and the answer is no, I haven't. Let's do that now. It looks cool. Bear with me 2 seconds. I might have to refresh as well. So anyway, how are y'all doing? Everyone having a good day? I'm my sleep pattern's completely changed because I'm off for the week. So now I go to bed about 2 a.m, wake up about noon. It feels really, really good. I hate waking up early. I wish you could choose when you could do your development jobs. I just get up at noon every day and go to bed at 2 o'clock. Actually, I said 2 o'clock. That's a lie. I went to bed at 3 o'clock last night. Or this morning. Maybe that's just me. Right. Let's have a look at this again. Yes! It works first time. Didn't have to restart. Okay, so now you can see I've got my pass and tests here. What I did was I installed Jest. And Jest is our test runner. Written by the people at Facebook. Oh, we got somebody waving. Hello. The people at Facebook wrote Jest, and it's actually a really nice, really, really informative bit of software. So let's just kill this process in our bash terminal, and let's make one of these things fail. So this shows you all the passing tests. You can see in the green here, all the tests are passing. And I'm just doing like basic like input output things because it's mostly getters and setters in this. Oh, that's a really good question. So it's actually a mixture of things that I know about and things that I don't know about. The things that I do know about, obviously just generally JavaScript, modern JavaScript, do a lot of that at work. I was learning Jest at work while I was doing this, and I was learning how to add my own build systems at work. So I decided to use my own build systems here. I didn't know that much about Jenkins. Again, I was learning that at work, so I decided to use my own like learn Jenkins and build my own scripts, my own Jenkins files. but I didn't know the infrastructure side of things, so that was quite a stumbling block. Things that I didn't know. Svelte is brand new to me. I've never done Svelte before. I've done Angular JS, and I've done a bit of Angular, and a tiny bit of React, tiny bit, and also like I've written some stuff in Vue as well, which is a really nice framework. It's very close between doing Vue or Svelte for this project, but I decided to take a bit of a leap and do Svelte because it's new and interesting. So yeah, Svelte is brand new to me. Yeah, I think that covers all the bases there. Yeah, so my answer to that is that I'm doing a mix of things that I don't know and a mix of things that I do know. And as we move on with this project, probably once I've finished the modernization project, there's gonna be lots of stuff that I don't know about that I'm gonna have to learn on the fly. So yeah, that's gonna be exciting. So anyway, back to testing. So yeah. Yeah. I've got some people who like Vue here. Vue is great. It's the main reason why I want to try Svelte, because there's so many good things in Vue that are done just as well, I feel, in Svelte as well. So, like things like stores, such a good idea. But yeah, testing. So, testing. It's warm in here. Okay, so testing. 1, 2, 3. Keep making that joke. Okay, mate, pull yourself together. Anyway, so for testing, let's make one of these tests fail. So at the moment, this is all passing, and we have our describe blocks, which basically what I've done is I've written a describe block for every function, and then in our it block, we specify a set of conditions that are expected to, like we're saying, this is what we expect to happen for the test to pass. And then in the expect blocks, those are the actual assertions we're making. One other way to interpret this, if you're doing things in a more TDD way than a BDD way, like behavioral driven development way, is you could call this a suite, and you could call this a test, and then this an assertion. They're essentially the same thing, but usually in the front end code, we tend to write describe, it, and expect. And it's kind of a throwback from wanting to make front end code a bit more behavior driven rather than like measuring like data in back end development. But you can use either. It's just semantics really. So let's make this test fail. So our tile sheet Y is set to an initial value of 999. So we expect the getter to give us a value of 999, which makes sense. So let's make that 1000. And straight away, it's going to fail. We just give the test run time to catch up. There we go. And now, if you want to, put a breakpoint in there, debug it on the fly. Might take a second or two, but it usually just runs that one test, and we can look at all the data in that file. So this is a tile that I've set up. So for each mine's gone blank. For each test in each suite, every time we run a test, we create a new tile to use as a test subject, or a fixture, as you could call it. So create our fixtures, and then we're also kind of creating fixtures down here as well. So for each new tile, we create a tile sheet Y, define it with a value of 1000, and then run the test. And obviously that's going to fail. So, like I said, we can debug the test and find out why it is the way it is. So put another breakpoint there, resume the test, and we can find out what the value actually is going to be by using maybe the debug console. So you can go test tile. It's a thing. Dot get tile sheet. Y is a value of 1,000, so it's obviously not going to equal, is it? So, so yeah, it's just a really elegant test framework which integrates really, really well with Visual Studio Code once you have the extensions installed. You can also run it immediately. So what I've done is I've made my test command run jest with a coverage report. So run that, it'll run all the tests. And you can see here it's just going through all the things that have test coverage. Takes a little bit of time. There we go. You see how good that output is? Let's just make that a bit bigger. How like descriptive it is. Like the team who, I mean, I'm not a massive lover of Facebook, don't even have a Facebook account anymore, but they did a really good job on this test framework. So it tells you which line the test filed at and gives you formatted text. So you can see the code like with formatting and, you know, it still gives you the coverage report even if something's failed. Gives you the number of failures. Like what more could you want? You can even control click, and it takes you to the test. It's great. So yeah, we want to go align. Yeah, there we go. Amazing. Love it. Anyway, enough extolling the virtues of Jest. It's very, very useful. That's all I'm saying. And I'm going to use it in every JavaScript-based test. Oh, just knocked my mic. Apologies for that. Yeah, good. I'm just going to use it all the time now. It's brilliant. I want to look at the SSH stuff. Right, anyway, so... hasn't run, the test run hasn't run yet. It better. Ooh, okay. There's one thing about Jest that I don't like. It doesn't always update immediately. I mean, when you run it in the console, it's fine. But it doesn't always update immediately here. It works now. It's not important. I'm just a bit OCD about it. I like all my tests to pass. We'll let it figure itself out. No. I believed in you, Jest. You were the chosen one. There we go, it's working now. So that's what you got to do. You got to recite a quote from Star Wars Episode 3, and it works again. You saw it on the stream. Okay, so let's get back to where we were. So yeah, we've I put test coverage essentially around anything that could be easily modeled. So what I did in my original project was I wrote like classes for the map, for each layer in the map, each tile, and also the camera in the app. So all of those things got tests and got like an update to ES5. Have I been saying ES5 this whole time? It's actually ES5 and ES6. But essentially, let's just call it modern JavaScript because, you you never know exactly which spec it's from, but yeah, all the layers in the map, that's all been updated. To modern JavaScript. That's not that exciting to look at, so I'll probably move on now. Oh yeah, two other things that have updated a little bit. One other thing rather is the render manager. Now I can't remember what I called this. It was called something else, but essentially it's the code that does all of the issues all the commands to the canvas to render tiles and various things. This actually has very good test coverage. So we have our draw map function. And this function used to be very monolithic, very, very monolithic. It used to do everything. It was like a god function. So it would do as part of the code initiates rendering of the map, and it does this thing where it does it syncs with your graphics hardware. You like I can't remember exactly what it does, but request animation frame, it's like an optimization that syncs with your graphics card. Sorry, your screen's refresh rate. So it's doing that, and then if the map has data, then it starts to do all the work to draw the map and draw all the elements on screen. It also draws things like the palette, and it also does it draws like a grid as well, and all the tools when you use them. So I'll show you what I mean. There we go. So yeah, essentially the drawing method, it clears the screen each frame. So if you had let's say this here, and you deleted this, because because I have a refresh function, it redraws the buffer with a plain color, so that you don't see the old tiles when they've been deleted. And then also of course it draws the tiles. In addition to that, it also renders this box when it's being used. Frame rate's a little bit slow at the moment. I think I've got syntax in my GPU. And yeah, it's also drawing the grid. Let's turn that off. It's no longer drawing the grid. Oh yeah, and of course, also drawing this here. It's a tile picker. Now, eventually, I'm going to abstract all this out, and I have a view in the future. In a future project, I'll explain how I'm going to structure my projects as part of this. But in a future project, I am going to work on a plugin architecture and abstract the rendering of this from this. These two things are going to be separate and have their own rendering. They already use two different rendering connects, but they're all kind of in the same class. But they'll obviously split out into their own classes, and I'll provide the opportunity to have multiple instances of the canvas and stuff if you wanted to look at various parts of the map in different ways. I still need to analyze that a little bit, but yeah, that's for the future. So yeah, that actually has very good test coverage. I've gone through, and in addition to adding test coverage, I really broke up the the function as well. These functions here didn't exist. This was just a draw map function, and everything was done in this function. So I've gone to quite great lengths to parameterize and break up the function into these functions. They do all the different things. Look like render grid. I don't think the formatting's great on this. These will need to be improved, but yeah, they're all broken up into their own concerns now. Yeah. Breathe, Mike. And because they're broken up in their own concerns, they can be unit tested individually. So in their own units. Go figure. So we just expand this, and then see what I've done here is I've had to create a fake canvas. And then for each function, I've got a really good set of tests that do various things. You see they're quite complicated. a lot of it's just checking to see whether functions have been fired and how many times functions have been called. So like as you'd expect with a tile rendering function, you want to make sure that the thing's been called, the amount of times, like tiles across, times by tiles down, times by layers, like all that kind of stuff. So I've just done various scenarios. Good example here is render map tiles. Should render 5 tiles, as 5 tiles on the map have been defined. So yeah, see here I've added 5 tiles to the map in one layer, and then I've asserted that, and I've done the same thing with layers. I've just really gone through it and made sure that everything works correctly. Things like when I've done like the select box to select tiles. Again, I've simulated the mouse here. You could have done the same with like automation testing, but I decided because I'd already abstracted out those values into like model values, I was actually able to write unit tests instead of integration tests or automation tests. So I don't have to like actually grab the mouse cursor and do all that kind of stuff. I can just grab the values and plug them in and do a bit of little bit of like white box testing. So most of these tests are like fairly white box. You can see what's inside of the functions, and you can adjust the values prior to setting up the tests. And then at the end of it, you can some of the tests I do like a get, although like they are getters, and check the values in a black box way where you don't need to know what's going inside the function. But then some of them you can kind of introspect the whole map object or the whole layer object at the end of the test and just see what's changed. So there's a mixture of black box testing where, like I said, you can't see what's going on until you get the value out of the end, whatever's returned. And then there's some tests that do a lot of introspection after the fact, and you actually do have a lot of knowledge of what's going inside. So yeah, I've got pretty damn good coverage on the map, the layer, the tile, the render manager, and pretty much that. One thing that I have not had a test around is this editor environment. As far as I'm concerned, I would like to see this entire thing be gone by the end of this project. By the end of this particular project, the MapWork modernization project. When all the jQuery is gone, this shouldn't need to exist anymore. It's doing lots and lots and lots and lots of DOM manipulation, by which I mean adding elements, pushing elements around like by hand, sometimes even, I'll show you here like this, creating HTML as strings and then injecting that into the app. This is so old fashioned, it's like so antiquated, it needs to be gone. What I'm heading towards is having model based components. So you plug your data into those components, not DOM, not HTML, data. And then the rendering library, the front end library like Svelte, creates that DOM for you. You don't have to do any of this work because it's really hard to maintain. It leads to very monolithic code, and you end up with this. You end up with nearly 2,000 lines of incomprehensible monolithic code. Even though it's been split into separate functions, it's still really, really hard to get your head around, especially if you haven't seen it for 7 years. This is bad. So what progress have we made towards that? Well, this is the progress. We have components, albeit components still rely on that massive heap of jQuery code, but we're going to put that right. This is not the right file. This is the right file. And that's where we are in the project. So yeah. I'm probably going to, in the future, do a little bit more of this roundup and project management stuff. I'm quite interested in it. Bear in mind that I'm a software developer, but on my own projects, I'm kind of my own product owner and my own boss. So I'm trying to lean into that as much as possible and do things in sort of a good Scrum way of doing things. So, for example, let's reload this. Bear with me a second. So I will move on from this and we'll get on to writing code soon. I have a Scrum board, and this is essentially what I expect to do in this current project, the MapWork modernization project. And as you can see, it's very close to being done. I've already done all the class conversion, test coverage, the module system. Now we have imports and exports of modules. Yep, more test coverage, deployment, test frameworks. Yep, adding SAS for the styling, ES7, ES6. Browser shims are gone. Most things are just working either natively or through Babel. I actually I used Parcel instead of Webpack because I didn't like Webpack that much. It was just messy, and yeah, deploying my app, I can do that. So I've done all those things. Right now, I'm in the middle of breaking the elements up into components, and oh yeah, I've actually done that as well. The canvas has its own component now. I say I'm in the progress of that. But yeah, that's where I am with this project. I planned this project from the outset to achieve these goals, so that I could get it done. I could make videos about it, and we could make some progress. Once this project is done, then we can start adding some really good features to this app. I've got so many ideas for this. You wouldn't even believe. I've been writing them down, a lot. So yeah, hopefully we can move on to that soon. In a new project that I'm going to plan out. Like I said, I'm taking it project by project. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that at the moment. We can move on to onto the code. Yeah, so turn mirror off because I think it's eating up all my GPU. Right. It's been about an hour, so I'm going to take a quick break, but I will be back and we'll start just writing code instead of blabbing on about project management and everything. So stay tuned. Get yourselves a snack. Get yourselves some water, and I'll be right back. That wasn't supposed to rhyme, but I'll take it. Hello. I'm back. Okay. So, yeah, back to Mike Makes, and we're modernizing MapWork using Svelte. I hope everybody's having a good time out there. It is a lockdown as per their regional rules at the moment. I've been in here for exactly a month and a day without leaving the house, which is, well, I'm used to it now, so can't get my hat on straight though. I'm sure everybody else must have been outside. There we go. That'll do. Yeah, you know. Anyway. So I think I've got all the project management stuff out the way and all the talking. So we can get on with doing some refactoring and svelting. So while I was working on this, actually, this morning when I was looking through the Svelte documentation, I found a better way of doing this. And I'm gonna use it now. So as you can see here, there's like an if-else ladder, but apparently you don't have to do that. I think it was, yes, Svelte component. I really like the way that they did this. So at the minute we use Active Wizard. Yeah. Select a component. I wonder if you can pass null through that. Let's try passing null. Because if we pass null, then they have the same interface. Let's give it a go. Let's see what happens. How's that still running? Yep. Anyway, yeah, just talking shop a little bit. I am trying to make efforts to improve the stream a little bit. I have already added the sort of transition cards. I'll see whether I can do anything about like music or something. I haven't done that yet. So it's a learning process. Hopefully the video's not been jumping or anything. So we want to end up with something like this. See, if I make these into data structures, then it means that I could probably put them into different files, different modules. Because I mean, I don't like how this is at the moment. It's just kind of all at the top here. I'd probably like to put these in their own files. The only part I don't know about is like how to handle the action handler, if I put it in different files. Try not to create spaghetti dependencies. Probably could solve it with a store though, by putting the map model into a store. Stores are great. They basically allow you to have like global variables without making them completely global. Like you can control whether you can write into them or read into them, and yeah, they're pretty awesome. So yeah, wizards. Wizards! I am the wizard. The wizard of JavaScript. Bear with me. Sorry about that. It's very bad stream etiquette. Anyway, friends was asking me if I want to play games tomorrow. I tell you, right, my schedule is busier now than it was when I wasn't in lockdown. I've had stuff to do every day. That's unbelievable. Has anybody else had the same? It's like all these really sociable people in real life going out their minds, but being like, you know, a reclusive programmer, I seem to be doing more social stuff now. It's amazing, but it's terrible. It's terrible. I'd rather be able to go outside, but you know how it is. Every cloud, everybody wants to talk to everybody, so everybody appreciates everybody's time. It's good that, you know, it's in a weird way, even though it's socially distancing people, like, you know, physically distancing people, is actually bringing people together. But I think that's probably one of the only good things for it, obvious reasons. Okay. Yeah, that old chestnut housework. Yeah, I've been doing plenty of that. My house has never been so tidy. Got to spend all day here, so can't live in squalor. Try to comment that out, but I can't. Don't want to get rid of it yet. There we go. Keep fighting the good fight and keep doing that housework. Right. So, Svelte. You have to import anything? No. Svelte component. This equals I think I already have a variable called that. No, good, I don't. Right, selected wizard. So we'll just try it with 1. Selected wizard equals. I'm going to put that in an object instead of an array. Just makes more sense because then you can use key values. In fact, let's do something crazy. Let's use our enumeration if we can. Did that actually work? Oh man. JavaScript. You quirky son of a bitch. I'll make sure it's doing what I actually expect it to do. Uh-oh, it's not working. Selected wizard is not defined. Oh yeah, didn't define it. Is it going to light null? Nope. What about undefined? Nope. Site really gain anything. Maybe not, but you know, just still learning. I wasn't sure if this will work or not, so it doesn't look like it's going to work. I still Can access wizards before initialization. Good point. Yeah, so that's the wizard showing. Don't really want the wizard to show initially. There's got to be a way to, stop that value from. See, if this were Angular, you'd be able to if this, and it would just work. Oh, this guy used the wrong keyword. This should work then. I should be able to like null it. It was defying Boolean logic. I've broken everything else, but that's fine. Okay, that seems to work. So that's let's fix everything. Will it be dynamic enough to understand what I'm doing here? Moment of truth. Yes. Get in there. That didn't work. It's because I didn't add one to this. That's fine. So we can get rid of that actor wizard thing now. It's useless. This is better. It's more declarative. There's less junk. Let's name a thing. It does not exist. We'll just make that do nothing for now. Because you can't even see the button in the UI. Right, active wizard is gone. Select a wizard as the new king. Keep all the wizards together. So to summarize what I just did there, I have put the wizard types into a data structure, and I'm using from an enum a value to say which wizard is which wizard type. And then inside that, I'm saying I want to use this Svelte component. And then I have a selected wizard. Selected wizard. And then when somebody hits like new map or like download map, then it assigns selected. And if the selected wizard is selected, then it renders out the appropriate Svelte component. And they all follow the same interface, so they both emit wizard cancelled events and wizard completed events. So I'm hoping in the future, in fact, I could probably do it now. I can put those into some kind of file and forget about them and get them out of this one. So we already have a wizard types file. Do we use that wizard type? Do we use it in here? Selected wizard. I don't know. Let's sing it do anyway. Sing for the list. Right, so given all that, we can create the projects. Got an error. Cannot read map name of null. It looks like it's actually trying to download the map. How very strange. I know what it is. We've got to specify those functions as right. As long as it's happy with the semantics I've used, should be alright. Also, there's another version of my map running in the background there. Weird. Cancel works. Create works. Cancel works. Okay. Works. Yep, it's working again. with some calendar. T. Calendar T. You're going to have to explain that one to me. Or was it just an error? Wrong emoji. It's like, is this a pigeon? Is this a T? So I'm quite happy with that now. I want to turn that notification into a Svelte notification at one point. So at the minute it's just that, and then all the logic's done inside the editor environment. So let's sort that out. Dove, hey, oh my god. Dove wave. Oh, is this a pigeon? Yeah. Bit slow on the uptake today. So the next challenge is to take all this behavior here, this notification behavior, and turn it into a Svelte component. So the way we used to do it, God, this delay is quite long. I feel like I mind all the jokes. I'm not a cool kid who knows all the memes. Yeah, we don't have to do any of this anymore. This kind of sucks the way we did this, but it was the way you used to do it. So let's write an interface for this. This admittedly is basically just rewriting the thing. So, what we'll do, we need to see it. So, that there. We want that to happen. It'll go zoop, and then show some text. So, I think it's antihistamine time. BRB. I'm back. Right. Yeah, so there's a few things we need to do here. One is obviously we need to reproduce the styles of the old notification banner. We also need to model the text that's being shown, and we also need to control visibility. So, yeah, so we got to do that. And then there's also timers to take into account. So let's try and get this showing like statically. It's already in the DOM. We're already showing it. Let's make it show all the time, and then we can work on it. Like I said, this was written in a really weird JQuery way. So we've got to unpick a lot of not so good code. Let's just take all of this out and start by at least putting it in here, and then we can work forward. So there's the text really faintly. I'm just trying to figure out how I want to do this. So obviously we just put background color there. You can see it all the time now. Need more screen. One advantage of having your style script and HTML in one file, as you do in Svelte, is you don't have to have loads of tabs open. Here we have some notification text. We need to be able to pass in the color to control the CSS. I use CSS variables in the dialog box. I'm not sure whether that's the right way to do this. Yeah, look at the documentation. Apparently, the way you do it is you use an inline style or you use CSS variables. Okay, fair enough. I don't know why I don't like. I mean, I haven't got an opinion about CSS variables yet. I just, my brain when it was like going, why can't you do this with a framework? I suppose you are kind of doing it with a framework. No, I got a better way of doing this. Somewhere in my mind. Oh, right. Think about this. This would be a thing that would be really nice to use an event dispatcher for. The only problem with that is I don't think it broadcasts. I think it bubbles up. It's not like a global thing. By the way, when I'm like doing this, I'm just researching. If only I could re-implement that function. And that function, at the minute we have a bit of functionality that's like, it's essentially like a singleton. Well, it's not singleton. It's just getting some DOM and changing it and adding a timer and then getting rid of it. I don't want it to be in this file, but I don't hate the way it works. I kind of want to replicate how it works, where you can call a function, specify a color, and for it just to work. I'm just trying to think how I can architect that with Svelte. Is it even the right thing to do? Maybe I could just write it in JavaScript. Maybe it's not supposed to be a component. No, it should be. I think I know what to do. Just got to experiment. hoping this is not an anti-pattern. Better not be an anti-pattern. So what I'm thinking is that I use a store to control the notification, and I use it a bit like a service. Because then I could write a yeah. No, this might work. Right, I'm gonna write it out and then we'll see if it works. Right. Let's keep everything in this folder. So this feels like I'm writing Angular, trying to write Angular in Svelte. what did it used to be called? Display notification. Wish me luck. All right, so I've created a notification store there. That's what it looks like in the store. We should pass this down as a prop. We could subscribe to it. Or we could pass it in as a prop. We're already using it with stores anyway, so we'll import it as a store. I'm not going to directly pass props into it. And also we'll have like a little switch as well. And that switch will dictate whether it's visible or not, but we'll implement that in a moment. So let's do that. So this is how you use stores in Svelte. You have to subscribe to them, and then they get automatically updated. So when it changes, eventually we're going to have some kind of a timer, I think. And then when that timer clears, then the whole thing disappears. Oh, you know what? We could probably do that now. Let's do that now. So Can everybody still see my screen? Because my screen kept going on and off there. I think we might have had a little power surge. Cool. Right, no idea if this is going to work. Okay, so let's round up what we've done. So I want to show a notification. Okay. I want to show a notification there of either red or green, and I want it to show a message. So what I've done, let's have a look at the errors and such. No errors. Oh yeah, that's actually, yeah, that appears to have done what I expected it to. So if I go into the store here and put the default as has worked, dude. Yeah, see that? See that? It works in a fashion. Right. We haven't added the if yet. So we just want to you don't want to do it on the first one though. Hello. The way we stop that from happening is we make these null. And then you just go if config dot message equal to null, or not equal to null. In fact, you just say if config message good. Hey everybody. So now let's link it to something, because we have some kind of way to invoke it. So I'm typing Mac commands again. Seriously, using a Mac ruins your brain. Like, all your key commands are wrong. Why can't they just agree? Why couldn't they just agree to use the control key? Like, what define what the control key is? We didn't use that. That was a bad approach. The question is, did it work? So we've commented out the original version. Hell yeah. Now we can get rid of the old version. Oh yeah, I need to add the times and stuff back, but got a little bit ahead of myself. So the way I got that to work was, and I don't know whether this is a Svelte anti-pattern, but I created a store for the notifications so that it's globally accessible if you import it. I made it a writable store. I created a component for a notification, and then I made it so that the class changes based on the color that's added. I could turn that into a style instead. I think that's probably better. I'm thinking of maybe using a CSS variable as opposed to this way. If it's not visible, then it doesn't appear in the DOM, and the message is defined here. So then you have to invoke it by calling this function in a service, which then sets the data. So this is more of a helper, really. This just sets the data in the store, and then because it does that, that triggers an update, which makes that visible. And then what I can do now is add some kind of a timeout to make it invisible again after a certain time. So we use a time of 200. Oh, so it's 200 milliseconds to add timeout of 5 seconds. So let's start off with doing that time of 5 seconds. Make it disappear. And then we'll probably use Svelte to make the animations work. Or we could use CSS to make it exit. That would be fine as well. So let's give it a go. Hey, it worked. That's why I like learning new technology, because everything, even the little minute things, feel like you've won. I'll get that dopamine fix in these times. Let's have a look at Svelte, because it's got built-in animations. If this is as simple as it says it's going to be, like, it's a miracle. Animations are so horrible to do normally. In fact, like, literally, I can just put fly and then enter some coordinates. Like, this is the best library ever if that's actually the case. Like, this is easier than doing JQuery animations, if that is the case. So maybe you think it's going to be the easiest thing in the world? Place your bets now. All right, that was slower. That's fine. All right, fade. I believe it's 200 milliseconds, not 2000. All right, that's good. I'm not sure why it's fading like that though. Let's try doing the same thing, but with 72. Is it going to just like... Right, so minus 72 again. I'm pretty impressed with that. Like, one of my pet peeves is working with animation, and that was so easy to do. Awesome. That's how you do a CSS variable. You have to just sort of put them on the style. Okay, that's fine. I don't really want to put them in like that. But oh no, they're accessible in CSS. Okay, that's fine. I can live with that. Notification height. See if this works first, and then we'll try it with the CSS. I didn't work, I don't think. No, I didn't. Is that because that's, oh, it's already classed as JavaScript, isn't it? So maybe I'll just do it like this. You're watching me learn before your very eyes. Okay, I done broke it. Minus. Hey! I unbroke it. And that is what CSS variable looks like. I know, right? Oh, there actually isn't a height. What is it doing left and right? Oh, yeah, it's these. These are 72 pixels. Yeah, that's where I'm getting the 72 from. It's alright, I meant to break that. So that's the default color. We don't need these anymore. We'll just keep them for a second because I need those colors. Notification color, banner color, background color. var. Is it going to work? Yes! Of course it is. I'm quite happy with that. Is my head moving? Yes, it is. Right, so let's find out where this has been used. Get rid of those. Would be nice to have that variable though somewhere we can share it. This is where do I backtrack on what? Do I backtrack and go back to the way it was? Ooh. So display notifications used here, here. Why don't we try using this version? One thing I like about this solution is the code that uses it doesn't have to know about what a store is. So I can just remove this. Hopefully. So that's another piece of JQuery gone. So using the new thing. Using the new component. I call that a win. Think how long we in? Yeah, 2.5 hours. I'm probably gonna call it a night now. Hopefully that was somewhat interesting. Yep. Like I said, still working on the stream. Hopefully I can make it a bit more interesting and get the word out there a bit more. But it's been a pleasure. So have a good night, everyone.